All right. So today, this message was speaking about the rise of the self-proclaimed aware narcissists and why they still cannot be trusted to a certain extent, right? It's fascinating, and it's becoming even more increasingly prevalent. The rise of the self-aware narcissists, you know, which means these are the individuals who openly identify as narcissists and acknowledge their traits. Yet, this awareness does not inherently render them trustworthy. I'll tell you why. I've been seeing a lot, even in just in public. I'm starting to hear, excuse me, the word narcissist tossed around like a menu item on McDonald's, at McDonald's at least, right? It just narcissism is just all over the place now. All right, everybody, it's just taking away the core significance of that disorder. One of the things that brought rise to the narcissist awareness, at least when I got into it again, we're going back almost about 10 years when I started this journey of informing people. No one knew about, hardly anybody knew about what NPD was. They thought narcissism was somebody that looked in the mirror and liked themselves at that time. A lot of people still did. You hear it now on, mainstream platforms, news, media. You're hearing it everywhere now. And that's the cultural shift in diagnosis, which has happened with that. In an age dominated by social media and the widespread availability of psychological information, self-diagnosis has become a commonplace. That's basically what we're witnessing, folks. A lot of self-diagnose examples of narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder. This is what we're seeing, just the facts. Narcissism as a concept, at least, has entered mainstream discourse, right? And often it's oversimplified and sensationalized now. Okay, you have to be mindful of that. Many individuals now label themselves as narcissists based on relatable traits such as seeking validation or overly self-focused, which may not necessarily meet the clinical criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. I've been saying this for the longest, and I knew it was going to get to this way. I was saying this way back in 2015 that this is the direction we were going to be going in with this narcissistic personality disorder and awareness information and stuff in general. So, we can look at it like this. The awareness basically has created a subset of people who publicly embrace the narcissist label, often, framing their themselves or framing their behavior as a result of personal insight rather than pathology. Okay? Personal insight versus pathology are fundamentally different. Okay? And by acknowledging that they have narcissism or that they're a narcissist, they can sidestep criticism by preemptively owning their own flaws, effectively neutralizing external judgment. You see where I'm going with this, right? Where this opens a door up for people to say, well, they are aware of what they're doing. So I guess they're not like the bad narcissists. And so we start creating subsets of the personality disorder in certain areas to fit the need or to fit the narrative based on someone's personal insight about the disorder. All right. So we're going through validation through vulnerability. And in many cases, in modern societies, vulnerability is frequently equated with authenticity. Aware narcissists exploit this culture. They exploit this culture value by presenting their acknowledgement of narcissism as a form of vulnerability. Statements like, I know I'm a narcissist. Statements like, I became aware of what I was doing and all of this, that can paradoxically attract admiration, as an audience will often mistake self-awareness for genuine self-improvement. This is critical. I'm going to say that again. A lot of people miss this. All right. I'm bringing y'all information like on a grad school level. So again, they exploit this cultural value by presenting their acknowledgement of narcissism as a form of vulnerability. This can attract admiration from their audience, who will often mistake self-awareness for genuine self-improvement. And platforms like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, they've all amplified this trend, giving rise to narcissist influencers who openly discuss their traits, garnering both curiosity and empathy from their followers. All right. Now, when we look at it from a monetization level, monetizing personality traits has become a lucrative enterprise, because openly discussing their narcissism, some individuals can actually create content that resonates with others, either those seeking to understand narcissism in their lives or whatever is going on with them, or those who relate to the traits themselves. And this is where aware narcissists capitalize on the attention to build personal brands, often framing themselves as leaders and, all this other stuff, despite their inherent biases and lack of objectivity. All right. So we move on into the next thing that I think is pretty important in this discussion, in this message, is why awareness doesn't equate to trustworthiness. Self-awareness is not synonymous with change at all. Many aware narcissists acknowledge their tendencies without committing to changing the process of behavioral or facilitating the process of behavioral transformation. Narcissism is way more complex than just that. It's a deeply rooted pattern of manipulation, entitlement, and lack of empathy. Simply recognizing these traits does not mean they are actively being mitigated. In fact, the act of declaring themselves a narcissist can serve as a manipulative tool within itself. And by openly admitting their flaws, they disarm others, making their behaviors less likely to be questionable. And this tactic shifts focus from their actions to their supposedly honesty, creating a false sense of transparency. Folks, it gets deep. And this is why there's so many uninformed targets that get manipulated still by narcissistic stuff. And that's why you see a lot of people that still stuck on these videos. They're not going to the right sources, getting the help that they need to fully understand what they were dealing with. They get people who patronize them or go along with what that person wants to think and see, which, confirmation bias, at least, is the approach that most go through when they're actually seeking help from people to get an understanding or to fully heal from narcissism or from the interaction with the narcissist by being manipulated. I cannot stress how advanced, calculating, cunning, manipulative narcissists are in general. Because a lot of you think you got it figured out, but trust. I've had enough clients over the years and to know, to see. A lot of people don't have a clue still. It wouldn't be people buying into this, the things that's going on now. Right? Just wouldn't. I'll say this too, even though you see this, you're still gonna, even though you could be running to someone, and then I'm not specifically just talking about on YouTube, you just in general at the workplace, you're starting to see people who are like, oh, I know I'm a narcissist. Well, they're just professing this stuff. They still lack empathy. And empathy is a core deficit in narcissism. While an aware narcissist might intellectually understand the impact of their behavior, they lack the emotional capacity to genuinely care about how it affects other people. And this is where the disconnect between their words and actions come into play heavily. Right? They may convincingly articulate their shortcomings, but fail to demonstrate consistent change in their interpersonal relationships. That's where we go into the exploitation of awareness. Aware narcissists are adept at weaponizing their self-awareness. A narcissist will use anything to gain leverage. I've spoken numerous times about how true victims, right? People who have really genuinely been victimized, their victimhood is getting hijacked and weaponized by narcissists heavily these days. I can't stress that enough. Victimhood has been hijacked. Think about that. And for example, they might use phrases like You know I'm a narcissist to excuse hurtful behavior or to avoid responsibility. If you continue to deal with them, they may not even say it, but they may treat you in a degrading way or some type of way like that. That's another tactic because they want to see, what are you willing to put up with in which you do not recognize is not healthy or good. Yeah. And this preemptive admission can act as a shield against accountability. Oftentimes it does. They use that as a shield to avoid accountability, leaving others confused or hesitant to challenge them. In extreme cases, the tactic can involve it can evolve at least into gaslighting, where the aware narcissist manipulates others into doubting their own perceptions and boundaries. So when we get into the thing of the performance of how are they going to change, right? Many aware narcissists excel at performing change rather than embodying it. They may present themselves as an introspective and evolved individual, using the language of personal growth and trust, all the works. However, these performances are often superficial and designed to maintain control over how others perceive them. True change requires humility, vulnerability, and consistent effort. These qualities that narcissists often have, they struggle with that. A real narcissist is going to struggle to cultivate all of those things. And for many real narcissists, self-awareness creates cognitive dissonance, a conflict between their idolized self-image and their true acknowledged real flaws. So to resolve this tension, they may compartmentalize their awareness, treating it as a badge of honor rather than a call to action. Because this is going to allow them to maintain their grandiose self-perception while superficially engaging with their darker traits. And this is where a lot of the deflection and redirection comes in, because acknowledging their narcissism can also serve as a sophisticated deflective tactic. It gets deep, folks. See, people hit y'all with the surface level of this stuff. And a lot of times, the easier it is, people run and gravitate to it, especially if it's speaking and just, again, patronizing or validating what they want to hear. So by redirecting a lot of these conversations towards their self-awareness, they can control the narrative and divert attention away from a bunch of their harmful behaviors. So this is another strategy that reinforces a narcissist's need for admiration while minimizing the scrutiny of their actions. This is where we're going in the future with this narcissism stuff. And at this rate, by how people aren't picking up and aren't fully understanding narcissism, I can guarantee you the cycle will continue of people still getting played, hurt, and manipulated by narcissists, even with the mass amount of information that's out now on it. People still don't get it. They're not getting the proper understanding of how this works. It's easy to come and listen to videos. But are you doing this from somebody who really has the proper understanding of how this works? So I believe the rise of self-proclaimed narcissists, aware narcissists, reflect the broader cultural trend towards self-diagnosis. This is what we're getting. Self-diagnosed individuals and people who are just throwing out, oh, they're a narcissist. They see a few traits. They're a narcissist. You know, it's gonna progress, is what I think. But it's essential to remain critical in your judgment, in your thinking. You know, awareness alone does not equate to trustworthiness or genuine change. In many cases, a lot of times it becomes another tool for manipulation, plain and simple. And it's going to enable a narcissist to maintain control and influence while avoiding accountability. It's very important. I'm going to leave y'all with this. It's very important to look beyond the words. You got to assess actions. Right? Awareness is, for anybody, is merely the first step in a long journey of transformation. And without accountability or empathy, it all remains hollow. So I'm going to leave that message there. Thank you all for listening. If the message helped you out or it resonated, consider to like and subscribe. It'll be helpful. If you want deeper insight on to your own situation and getting, more in-depth stuff about your situation and you want a consultation, just reach out and email me. My email is in the description box. Until next time, have yourself a good one. Enjoy yourself. Stay safe out there.